Hello. This is the Ramblings of an Undisciplined Mind podcast for Friday, May 13th, 2016. As of this recording, Sierra is still missing. Boy, that sounds really ominous when you say that, doesn't it? Friday the 13th. Ah! Yeah, I don't really get too superstitious about such things. So, what I thought I'd talk about today, I got the day off today, so that's why I'm in the studio, the lovely, lovely studio. I'm going somewhere later, but I wanted to get the podcast before I leave for the weekend. I'm leaving for the weekend, going away. So anyway, I thought I would talk about habit number 4, the habit that we had to read about this week, which is called Think Win-Win. This is the first of the public victories habits, as he calls it. This isn't public victory in the sense that, I'm winning and you're losing, as we'll see as we dive into this chapter. This is more that the private victory that habits 1, 2, and 3 give us enable us to win in our dealings with others, that we are able to adopt and, what does he call it? Instead of independent, we're intradependent. And so that is the purpose of this. That is the meaning of the public victory. So we get habit 4, which is one we're going to discuss today, think win-win. Habit 5, seek first to be understood. And then habit 6, synergize. And those 3 make up the public victory section. And then we've got habit 7, which is something totally different. So let me get to the notes here. He talks about there's basically 6 paradigms of human interaction. You've got win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, win, and the last one, which he calls win-win or no deal. That's one. That's one paradigm, win-win or no deal. So let's talk about what these are. Win-lose is our typical competitive frame. We are competing, and I win, so that means everybody else loses, and so that's what that means. Anytime we're in a competitive situation at work or at school where we are trying to achieve something, and there's one achievement to be had, then that is a win-lose scenario. And that's very common in business. It's very common in a lot of areas. And it's common to the way we think. We were discussing this one as part of our bonus discussion in class. And one of the guys in the class posted that, human beings are animals. And because of that, we're used to this competition, and it's part of our animal selves. And we just naturally kind of default to that mode. And I thought there was a lot of truth in that we tend to think competitively, at least in this country. Other countries might be different, but in this country, we tend to think competitively. So I think that's very, very true. So that's win-lose, very, very common. You've got lose-win. And that's some people that are programmed to go the other way. They're the people that will capitulate immediately. They, for whatever reason, maybe they're trying to pander approval, or maybe they just don't want to upset anybody, but they will capitulate almost immediately. They will give up immediately, and they're doing what they do in thinking that it's what they need to do to keep the peace. So they automatically lose so that other people can win. As he says, lose-win means being a nice guy, even if nice guys finish last. He points out that both win-lose and lose-win are weak positions based on personal insecurities. Because, if you're driven to win at all costs, usually it's because you're insecure about something. So therefore you are driven to this great competitiveness. I've known people like this, where they gotta win in every situation because they are really compensating for the fact that they feel insecure. In the same way with people that they give up right away, they are they're you know they're making up for something. And then you got lose-lose, and that's what happens when two win-lose people get together. You get two people that are stubborn, that are ego-driven, that must win at all costs. Nobody wins. And instead, it turns into like feuds turn this way because they're both win-lose. The Hatfields can't win because I'm a McCoy, and the McCoys are thinking I said it the other way. The McCoys are thinking the Hatfields can't win because I'm a McCoy, and the Hatfields are thinking the McCoys can't win because I'm a Hatfield, and you end up with vindictiveness and violence and revenge and lose-lose. Everybody's losing. In that case, because people were dying. Can't get much more lose-lose than that. And then you just got win. Just win. And that's where people don't necessarily want someone else to lose, but what matters is that they get what they want. And so they're not necessarily trying to screw other people over, but as long as they get what they want, that's what they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for the victory over other people. They just want to get what they want to get. So that's win. There are some times where one of these, like a win-lose, you can think you get that at least in the short term, but in the long term, it could turn into something different. Like he talks about how if he was a supplier to somebody's company and he wins terms on a particular negotiation, and it benefits him in the short term, but maybe now the customer whose terms he got, they don't like the way you did business. Now it's a lose-lose because you've lost the long-term business. You won the short-term contract, you won the short-term terms, but you lost the longer-term situation. And then he talks about what is kind of the better way to go, and that is win-win or no deal. And the no deal means that if you can't find a solution that would benefit both parties, then you just agree to walk away. Then you can't do a deal. You can't do whatever it is you're trying to do because there's no way to do that deal with where it benefits both peoples. And so you just agree to walk away. He sees the win-win or no deal as the best solution for an interdependent paradigm where I'm dependent on you and you are dependent on me. And if that's the case, we shouldn't be trying to screw each other over. So we should be doing win-win. We should be trying to find something that's going to work for both of us. And by that, we don't mean what he doesn't mean by that the kind of the typical negotiation where you and I are going to negotiate and then we're both going to give something up and get a compromise solution. That's not what he's talking about here with win-win, because that really isn't win-win. In a lot of cases, that's more like lose-lose, because nobody gets what they want. He's really talking about more that you can find a solution that has benefits for both, and that helps build up both, and nobody is getting more than the other person is. There are a number of different dimensions to win-win, and character is one of them, is an important part to being able to do win-win. He actually calls it the foundation of win-win. And there are 3 character traits that are part of that character makeup. Number 1, integrity. Integrity is value we place on ourselves. And how well we're able to manage commitments to ourselves and to others. Maturity is the balance between courage and consideration, as he says it. So are we courageous enough to do what we need to be doing, and are we considerate to other people as we're doing it? That is maturity. And then the third one is abundance mentality. And that is that having the attitude that there's enough to go around for everybody. I don't have to grab mine to prevent you from grabbing yours. With the win-win attitude, I'm recognizing that there is enough for everybody. I can have what I need. You can have what you need. There's not any scarcity. We don't have to fight each other to get what we need to survive. We can do something else. He says the abundance mentality takes the personal joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment of those first three habits and turns it outward, appreciating the uniqueness, the interdirection, and proactive nature of others. And really what he's talking about here is that it is the relationship. So when you're in a win-win, you're concerned about the relationship. In a win-lose, you're really not, because it's all about me. What about Smee? What about me? That's what you're going for, and in win-win, that's a totally different thought process. There are 5 thought elements to it. He says that you're looking at desired results of the agreement, not the methods, not how you're doing it. What are the results? What are the parameters? What are the policies? What are the principles that are going to be done with it? What is the accountability that's set up there? And what are the consequences, good and bad, as part of what will or will not happen? By utilizing those elements, win-win agreements can have a life of their own. You have a clear mutual understanding up front, and you have agreement up front, which creates a standard by which people can measure themselves. And in fact, he talks about how there are some places where they will use this as an evaluation technique. Instead of kind of doing the traditional evaluation, the manager and the employee will work out a win-win solution for what it is that the employee should be doing, what he should be measured against, and then they use a technique where the manager doesn't fill out an evaluation on the employee. They've hashed out what he should be doing and how he and what his goals are, and then the employee writes a letter back to the manager saying, okay, so here's what we decided, and then at that point the employee is able to effectively police himself. He is evaluating himself because it's a win-win solution. He's got buy-in to want to make that happen. And plus there's consequences in that agreement, both good and bad, that he can rely on, and in the case of the positive ones, look forward to getting. Let's see. Yeah, it talked about the management letter. And then for consequences, there's really 4 different types of consequences that he talks about. Financial, psychic, opportunity, and responsibility. So financial consequences are pretty easy to figure out. Income, stock options maybe, allowances or penalties in the case of kids at home, perhaps. Psychic, or maybe a better term is psychological consequences, can be recognition, can be approval, respect, credibility, or the loss of them. These are kind of like, we're kind of going through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we've kind of got the bottom one with the financial, and we're kind of working our way up a little bit here. It says, unless people are in a survival mode for some reason, due to bad economic times or what have you, the psychological consequences usually have greater worth to the employee than the financial, because, and that's Maslow's kind of follows that up, that once you you've got the basic physiological needs and they're taken care of, and you're not in survival mode, then the other ones become more important, and that's exactly what he's talking about here. And then you've got opportunity, which includes things like training and development, and perks, other benefits that you could get to be able to grow, to be able to do other things, things of that nature. And then responsibility has to do with scope and authority, which can be enlarged. So you get more responsibility, you get more authority, or it can be diminished. You get less. So obviously the first one's a positive, and the last one is a negative. But the core thing to remember with these consequences is that all these are spelled out in the win-win agreement. There's no ambiguity. If you do these things, you will get X. If you don't do these things, you will get Y. It's very clear, and it's in there. He says, there's no way to maintain them without personal integrity or a relationship of trust. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to start implementing win-win agreements. If you don't have that relationship of trust amongst the people that you are trying to do a win-win agreement with, it is not going to work. It is eventually going to fail. And I guess that's kind of the crux of it. Spent a lot of time talking about the win-win or no deal thing. It's kind of like the Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them and know when to walk away. And that's what the no deal is. It's like, it's not a poker game because there's only one, poker game is kind of the epitome of win-lose. One person wins a hand and everybody else loses. But in trying to, I'll stick with the poker analogy a little bit, if you're trying to distribute the pot equally amongst all the players, and if you can't do that, then you got to walk away and you got to do the no deal. And that's one of the things that makes it different. I think this is an interesting technique. I think it's something that's very non-intuitive. It's not something that we're generally, especially in the business world, we're generally used to implementing. And so I think that makes it quite a bit different. And it was an interesting chapter to read. But I think I'll let that be that for today. I will be back on Monday. There'll be no episode tomorrow because I'm going to be out of town. So I'll be back on Monday, and I'll be talking to you then. So, be seeing you.